Back in the 1970s, I was a young man, just 18 years old, in the 12th grade at St. Patrick's High School in Chicago. My name was Robert Johnson, and I was an ordinary boy with the typical teenage angst, as well as the promise and confusion of the future. I had a group of close friends at school: Jack, Tom, Steve, and Mike, and we were like confidants, talking about everything, hanging out all day long, messing around in class, wandering around after class, and making a mess of the school, inside and out. However, we knew that in front of our friends, we could always be our true selves without pretense. After school, we always went to the dance hall in the community center. In this hall full of laughter, the rock music and disco flowing from the jukebox, accompanied by the dance steps of men and women, intoxicated people, forgetting their troubles. It was only here that we felt truly alive. Our blood boiled with the music, and we became more and more beautiful. The jukebox that accompanied us through countless good times carried too many memories that belonged only to us. However, the good times were short-lived and our days were coming to an end. As our days of fun were coming to an end, Meline's father, the recently elected city councilman Rupert Timmer, began to make his mark on the neighborhood. The ambitious politician believed that the dance halls, which played loud music and housed domineering teenagers, were a blight on the neighborhood. He threatened to shut down the degenerate place and send the youngsters home to do their homework. How could my friends and I stand by and watch our beloved ballroom be taken away from us? It was our spiritual home. Even though we knew we were almost powerless against the politicians in charge, we had to fight back. So, we came up with a brilliant plan of mischief to give Rupert a run for his money. After a lot of conspiracy, we secretly gave ourselves a loud code name, Mole Mafia, and bought a lot of letter paper and envelopes to send threatening letters to Rupert. The contents of the letters were just the same old cliches, such as, "If you don't stop, beware of the mole's night visit," and so on. In order to make this packaged mafia look more realistic, we even went so far as to buy some live moles, sneak into Rupert's backyard in the dead of night, and drop the poor little things on his neatly mowed lawn. The next day, he was horrified to find his lawn sifted through with mole holes. Soon the whole community knew the name of the Mole Mafia and wondered where this mysterious organization came from. We were hiding in the shadows, watching Rupert's face as if he was on the verge of an attack, and it was a great relief. However, the prank was just a prank, and we didn't last long in the face of the police investigation, so we gave in. The so-called Mole Mafia was just a few high school students' trick, which was a sensation for a while, but in the end, it could only be put to rest. Although the ballroom was saved in the end, we tasted the bitter flavor of youthful rebellion. This farce left a deep mark in our memories and became the talk of the town. At that time, we all thought that the happy days will continue. Life is still as smooth as water. Did not realize that the god of fate smiled at us, silently laid a net. Inadvertently, the trajectory of our life is about to be rewritten. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, I have grown from a naive high school student to a college student. I was admitted to the University of Chicago, where I majored in engineering. This university has a colorful campus life and a strong academic atmosphere, where I have made many like-minded friends and have a clearer plan for my future life. What I didn't expect was that Meline also entered the University of Chicago and majored in journalism. Although we were alumni, we were like two parallel lines that never crossed in the sea of studies. I was still hanging out with my high school friends, while Meline was busy with her studies and club activities, and we passed each other on campus without even realizing we existed. The summer after my sophomore year of college, my buddies and I planned a road trip. A few of us hippie-type guys piled into a beat-up old Ford and wobbled our way to Florida. Sunshine, beaches, beautiful women. It was paradise. We settled in a motel, sunbathing on the beach during the day and picking up girls in bars at night, like a bunch of pirates. That's when fate played a joke on me. One day, I was strolling on the beach when a group of girls in bikinis approached me. The one in the lead was tall, fair-skinned, and had blonde hair that shone in the sun. She smiled at me with a charming smile, and my heart skipped half a beat. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at her, but wasn't it Meline? We were both surprised to meet in such a place. I joked, "Did you follow me on vacation?" Meline laughed and smacked me. "Who cares about following you? My girlfriends and I had it all planned out. That's how Meline and I met on the beach outside the Kennedy Space Center, starting an unexpected relationship. The two of us hit it off right away, and we were inseparable for the entire vacation. We swam together, surfed together, walked on the beach together, and talked about everything. I found Meline to be not only beautiful, but also funny, knowledgeable, and a pleasure to talk to. We were surprised to find that we had so much in common, including our favorite movies, music, and books. We both loved the Beatles, we both fell in love with John Lennon's songwriting talent, and we both loved Woody Allen movies. When we were in the mood to talk, we used to skip meals and watch the sun rise above sea level. Vacation was over, but Meline and I were on a roll. When we returned to Chicago, we started dating a lot. We went to the movies, the park, dinner, coffee, and everywhere on campus. I took Meline to my favorite jazz bar, and she took me to explore the University of Chicago's famous architectural landmarks. We rode our bikes along Lake Michigan, talked on the benches of Lincoln Park, and felt the pulse of the city. Although Meline comes from a political family, she is not at all a connected person. She is sincere, kind, and full of justice. She understands my sense of humor and appreciates my optimistic and open-minded attitude towards life. I have never felt happier and more joyful with her. Before I knew it, Meline and I had been dating for half a year. As Christmas approached, the streets of Chicago were filled with lights and festivities. I invited Meline to my home for the holidays to formally introduce this special girl to my family. On Christmas Eve, when it was snowing heavily, Meline appeared on my doorstep in a red dress like a Christmas present. My parents were full of praise for this beautiful and understanding girl, and even my grandmother, who was the most critical of all, had a soft spot for her. Dinner was a joyous affair, with the clinking of glasses. After dinner, I invited Meline to take a walk outside the house. Under the bright moonlight, we strolled on the snow, leaving a string of romantic footprints. I gazed at Meline with deep affection and mustered up the courage to say to her, "In the past 6 months, being with you has been the happiest time of my life. I'm in love with you, Meline. Will you be my girlfriend?" Meline's eyes glittered with tears. She nodded her head and whispered, "I love you too, Robert." After saying that, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed me on the lips. At that moment, time seemed to freeze, and we were the only two people left in the world, kissing in the flying snowflakes. College years passed by in a flash, and graduation season came and went as scheduled. I graduated from the engineering department and found a good job, while Meline graduated from the journalism department and became a reporter. Despite our busy schedules, we continued to go on weekly dates and spend quality time together. We've traveled together through the seasons and seen the sights of Chicago. We've picnicked on the shores of Lake Michigan, kissed under the Cloud Gate in Millennium Park, and gazed out over the city at night from the observation deck of the Willis Tower. We went to Chicago Symphony Orchestra performances together, stayed up late at Old Town bars, and fed giraffes at the Lincoln Park Zoo. The city holds so many great memories for us. In the blink of an eye, it has been 1 year since we graduated. This year, our relationship through the test, more mature and solid. Both parents are also very satisfied with our relationship, urging us to get married soon. So, on a romantic night, I proposed to Meline in a high-end restaurant by Lake Michigan. I got down on one knee, opened the ring box, and said sincerely, "Dear Meline, you have made me the happiest man in the world these past few years. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me and be my wife for the rest of your life?" Meline covered her mouth in emotion, and tears came to her eyes. She trembled and said, "I do, Robert, of course I do." I put the ring on her finger, kissed her, and felt the happiness surging in my heart. Our wedding was simple but grand. Our friends and family gathered to witness the crystallization of our love. Jack and Tom also came to attend, teasing us that the combination of a straight man and a young woman in the arts is really rare. But they were very happy for us and wished us 100 years of happiness. Meline was as beautiful as an angel in her white wedding dress. I held her hand and walked nervously and reverently to the wedding hall. Standing in front of the pastor, in front of our friends and family, we made our sacred vows. I vowed to love her, care for her, respect her, whether poor or rich, in sickness or in health, never leave each other. Meline, with tears in her eyes, said softly, "I do." I kissed her lips, and my heart was filled with tenderness. The background music for the wedding was All You Need Is Love by the Beatles. The pastor announced that I could now kiss my bride. Amidst the cheers of my family and friends, I kissed Meline deeply, knowing that from now on, we will walk hand in hand through every spring, summer, fall, and winter of our lives, and grow old with each other. With her by my side, I want nothing more, because love is everything. After our marriage, Meline and I moved to a suburb north of Chicago. I worked for a well-known engineering firm, and Meline worked as a reporter for the Chicago Tribune. Our life seemed to be a happy one, with successful careers and a happy family, a model couple in the eyes of the world. However, under the beautiful appearance, our marriage life gradually appeared cracks. Meline's work is getting busier and busier, often early morning and late at night, and on weekends, she also have to work overtime. She interviewed dignitaries and celebrities and went to all kinds of social occasions. Gradually, I felt that she had changed and was no longer the simple and kind-hearted girl she used to be. Meline began to dislike our small house and my ordinary job and always complained about my lack of ambition. She had been around the rich and elite for a long time, and her eyesight and tastes had become very demanding. I tried my best to change myself to make her happy, but there was always dissatisfaction in her eyes. Slowly, I realized that Meline was becoming more and more cold to me, no longer willing to communicate with me, even at home. She was always holding her cell phone. I do not know what she was busy with. Our conversations became short and hard, and the tacit understanding we once had was gone. I asked her more than once if she had encountered any problems. She always said perfunctorily that nothing, so that I do not meddle. Once, I worked late into the night and came home to find the house dark, thinking that Meline had already gone to bed. I washed up lightly, lifted the quilt ready to go to bed, but found that the bed was empty. I dialed Meline's number, but there was no answer. I sat in the living room and waited impatiently. I don't know how long it took for Meline to stumble into the house. When I asked her where she had gone, she stammered and said she had gone to a dinner party with her coworkers. I asked her why she came home so late. She said that the dinner party to half of the socializing cannot be excused. I looked at her unnatural expression, keenly aware that things are not so simple. But at that time, I still had trust in her, so I didn't ask any further questions. Things like this happened again and again, and Meline's explanations became more and more far-fetched. We argued several times, but the more I tried to find out the truth, the more she avoided talking about it. The crisis of trust between us was at its peak. One day, I went to Meline's office to pick her up from work, but I bumped into her walking out with a man holding hands. The man was handsome and seemed to be from a rich family, and when Meline saw me, her face turned pale. She was at a loss for words, explaining to me that he was a big client of the newspaper and she had to accompany him to socialize. When I asked her if she was cheating on me, she denied it and accused me of not trusting her. I was disheartened and felt that my marriage had come to an end. When I got home, I asked her for a divorce, and Meline didn't hold me back, but quickly agreed. Her indifference stung me, and I realized that she might have already moved on. The divorce went surprisingly well. Meline proposed a property division plan. She wanted the house and car. The rest went to me. I didn't care about the material things. I just wanted to end this failed marriage. During the days of separation, I was in a state of confusion, couldn't sleep at night, and felt like I had fallen into a black hole. On the day of the signing, Meline and I sat together for the last time. At one time, we sat side by side like this, making a promise to be together for the rest of our lives, and now, less than 2 years later, that vow is broken. Now, less than 2 years after this vow was broken, Meline calmly signed her name on the divorce agreement. Her face could not see a ripple. I silently looked at her determined side face. My heart was like a knife. After the agreement came into effect, I moved out of my house, rented an apartment in the city center, and started living alone. When my friends found out about it, they called me to comfort me. I tried my best to concentrate on my work and not to think about the past. But every night when it was quiet, I would still lose sleep until morning, and my mind was filled with Meline's scandalous figure. I don't understand how two people who have loved each other for so many years have come to this. We were like Siamese twins, like inseparable. How to drift apart, turn against each other? I have asked myself many times, marriage in the end, who first gave up who? Did I owe Meline something? I began to doubt myself, doubt love, doubt the meaning of marriage. I think, in this materialistic era, true love is just a vain bubble. Money, status, desire is the truth that people chase. For these, betrayal and deception are everywhere. I was so disappointed with humanity that I fell into deep self-doubt. And so I went on for some time. On the surface, I was still the same smart and capable engineer. But on the inside, I was full of holes and had no life. I thought I was going to live like this until one day, an unexpected encounter brightened up my life. A few months after the divorce, I have been living in a mess, every day mechanically to work, come home to drink alone, looking out the window at the night view of Chicago. I didn't want to see anyone, and I didn't want to go anywhere. My friends were worried when they saw me like this. That day, I was about to leave work when I got a call from Jack. He said that a few of them planned to go to the Lake Michigan barbecue camping, asked me if I was interested in going together. I wanted to refuse, but on second thought, cannot always be so decadent. So, I agreed to go with them. Early Saturday morning, Jack and the others drove to pick me up. On the way, we talked and laughed, and the atmosphere was very warm. But I couldn't get excited and just stared out the window. When we arrived at the lake, we divided the work into setting up tents, building fires, and preparing ingredients. I took the initiative to take over the barbecue work, hoping to take this opportunity to take a break. In a short while, the barbecue grill floated up a burst of tantalizing aroma. At that moment, a woman approached us with a picnic basket full of fruit, snacks, and drinks. She told us that she was camping nearby and had baked some food that she wanted to share. Jack and the guys thanked her and invited her to sit down with them for a barbecue. It was only then that I looked up and saw what she looked like. She looked to be in her 30s, with short, sharp hair, sparkling eyes, and a warm smile. She introduced herself as Elizabeth, a high school English teacher. We sat by the lake, ate and drank, and chatted. Gradually, I realized that Elizabeth and I had a lot in common. We both loved the outdoors, jazz music, and education. She said that her greatest passion was reading and that she loved to spend her free time in the library. I was surprised to find out that we share the same favorite author, Ernest Hemingway. Elizabeth and I talked to each other for the rest of the afternoon. As the sun was dwindling and it was getting dark, Elizabeth said she had to go back to the campground. I got up my courage and asked her if she would like to go boating on the lake tomorrow. To my surprise, she said yes. The next day, I arrived as promised, and Elizabeth wore a lake blue dress that reflected her blue eyes. We spent the morning boating on the lake and talked about many things. I was amazed at how knowledgeable and insightful she was. At the same time, she was also a very funny person, always telling some good jokes. At noon, we found a secluded lake shore to have a picnic, and Elizabeth took out of her basket a hearty lunch of sandwiches, chicken salad, fruit, and juice. I joked that she should be a chef instead of a teacher, but Elizabeth laughed and said that her biggest dream was to become a teacher and help more children get a good education. We stayed at the lake all day until the sun set. When we said goodbye, I asked Elizabeth if she would like to exchange contact information. She agreed. That's how we got in touch. When I got back to Chicago, I started asking Elizabeth out more often. We browsed art museums, walked the green paths of Lincoln Park, and watched the sunset from the observation deck of the Willis Tower. Little by little, I realized that I was alive again, and that a smile had finally appeared on my face. Once, I asked Elizabeth, "Have you ever been married?" She sighed and said she had been married once, but divorced within 2 years. Her ex-husband was a rich businessman who was a womanizer and often had affairs outside. When she found out, she couldn't stand it anymore and filed for divorce. Elizabeth said the failed marriage had left a big shadow on her. She had once lost faith in love, thinking that men were unreliable. But now, after the baptism of time, she still believes that true love exists. However, she will not give her heart easily anymore. I understood Elizabeth's feelings because they were my own. I told her that I too had a bad marriage and that my wife's infidelity had killed me. But now, I don't want to dwell on the past, and I want to move on. I found the courage to tell Elizabeth that the time I spent with her was the happiest I had been in years. I hoped that we could take our relationship to the next level and become an integral part of each other's lives. Elizabeth blushed and nodded gently. That's how Elizabeth and I became romantically involved. I took her to meet my parents for the first time, and they liked this simple and gentle girl very much. Elizabeth also took me to visit her parents, who are an old couple who have been in love for decades, and they were very warm to me. Love has given me a renewed zest for life. I feel that meeting Elizabeth is the greatest gift from God. I want to cherish this hard-earned relationship and work harder to make myself worthy of her. With that, I was able to get out of the darkness of my failed marriage and start a brand new life. Although the pain of the past is still there, with Elizabeth by my side, I feel there is nothing I cannot overcome. Hand in hand, we are walking into the future together, looking forward to a new and wonderful life. Elizabeth and I were in the midst of our romance when a news story caught our attention. It turned out that Elizabeth's father, Bill, was running for state senator in Illinois. He's a respected retired teacher who's dedicated to education and community building. Elizabeth told me that her father had always had political aspirations to do more for education in the state. But he's running against an incumbent legislator who is backed by a consortium and has plenty of money. Bill, by contrast, is not in a good position. I encouraged Elizabeth to be supportive of her father, and I offered to help in some way, and Elizabeth was touched and said that she felt warm and fuzzy with my support. Soon, Bill's campaign team was up and running. In my spare time, I helped them write campaign materials and design brochures. On weekends, I went out with Elizabeth to distribute flyers in the neighborhoods to canvass for Bill. Initially, Bill didn't poll well, but as we worked hard, his support began to climb. But as we worked harder, his approval ratings began to climb, and he ran on a platform that emphasized education as a priority, calling for more investment in the state schools and colleges, better teachers, and less burden on students. These ideas were recognized by many voters, but it didn't last long, and as the campaign heated up, Bill's opponents began to use some unsavory tactics. They spread negative news about Bill on social media, questioning his academic background and political motives. They even hired people to follow Bill in an attempt to dig up some scandals. In the face of these vicious attacks, Bill was overwhelmed. As his daughter, Elizabeth was furious, but there was nothing she could do. I advised Elizabeth to believe in the power of truth and justice, and that we need to respond to the attacks in a more positive way. I suggest that Bill should make more public appearances and let voters feel his ideas and ambitions through policy debates and other means. At the same time, we should make full use of social media to spread Bill's campaign platform and attract more young voters. Thanks to our efforts, Bill's support began to rebound, and at one point he was even 10 points ahead of his opponent. But the rival camp clearly wasn't willing to lose. 2 weeks before the election, they dropped a bombshell. They claimed to have evidence that Bill had sexually harassed a female student during his teaching career 3 decades ago. Despite the time that had passed, the news caused an uproar. Many voters began to question Bill's character and integrity. Faced with such accusations, Bill felt very aggrieved. He vehemently denied that he had ever done such a thing, but because of the age and the fact that the person involved was no longer available, it was difficult for him to produce strong counter-evidence. Seeing his years of hard work go down the drain, Bill wanted to withdraw from the race. But Elizabeth tried to discourage him, and I said I would support him to the end. We believe that this allegation is probably a play directed by the rival camp to break Bill and turn the election around. At my suggestion, Bill held a press conference to publicly address the allegations. He stated categorically that he had never done anything to harm students and that this was a falsehood and slander. He called on his opponent's camp to produce evidence, or else he was misleading the voters. Meanwhile, many of Bill's former students have also come out to support him. They shared many photos and stories of Bill's teaching days on social media, giving people a glimpse of a dedicated and tireless teacher. Under the pressure of public opinion, the rival camp finally revealed itself. Some media dug out that the so-called victimized female student was actually a staff member of the rival camp. The whole incident was a well-designed conspiracy. When the scandal broke, Bill's opponent withdrew. In the end, Bill was elected to the state Senate and has become a pillar of education reform in Illinois. This victory is an inspiration to all of us, and it shows us that if we stand up for what is right, we can overcome rumor and deception. To the sound of the state capitol bell, new Councilman Bill took the oath of office. He faced the flag and solemnly swore that he would serve his people and fulfill his mission. Elizabeth was in tears, and I held her hand. At this moment, I was proud to have such a righteous and idealistic father-in-law. With Bill's election, I could see myself getting involved in community affairs years ago. The floodgates of memory were opened, and I couldn't help but think of the Mole Mafia incident that was such a big deal in high school. After many years, the pranks of that year have long been the talk of the town. But in my heart, it is a precious memory, witnessing our unrepentant youth and love for the community. One day, I asked Jack and Tom, some of the accomplices of that year, to get together at the old place. We brought out beers, sat around the lake, and reminisced about the feat we had done back then. Tom says he still has the forged Mole Mafia threatening letter, and every time he sees it, he feels it's very memorable, and Jack laughs and says it might even be worth some money in the future. After all, it's also a piece of community development history. We talked about Rupert's reaction. He thought he had offended some mysterious forces and was so scared that he didn't even dare to report to the police for fear of retaliation if the news got out. We laughed our heads off and said that Rupert deserved it, as he was a fake and a bully. As we talked, we all became a bit emotional. At one time, we thought that as long as Rupert, the troublemaker, was kicked out, the community would return to peace. But now, looking back, Rupert was the only one who really affected the development of the community. Throughout the years, the community has been a tangle of interests. Real estate agents and developers have been eyeing community land, and politicians have been mediating behind the scenes in an attempt to reap the benefits. The interests of ordinary residents are often ignored and sacrificed. We all agree that the Mole Mafia was a young operation, but it had the right intentions. It embodied the determination of ordinary people to defend their homes and fight against injustice. This spirit should not fade with the passage of time, but should be carried forward in the new era. On the spur of the moment, I suggested that we should write a book to record the events of that year. Everyone thought it was a good idea and said they were willing to provide material and help add details. Thus, I began to write in my spare time. I checked a lot of old newspapers and archives, and interviewed many witnesses and people who knew about the incident. Gradually, a complete story unfolded under my pen. I have chronicled Rupert's misdeeds and revealed the truth about how he targeted youth centers in the name of protecting the community. At the same time, I depicted the fun I had with my buddies when we devised our pranks, showing the wisdom and courage of ordinary people. The writing process was not easy, and I often stayed up late into the night. Whenever I was tired, Elizabeth would always be there to encourage me and make me a cup of hot coffee. With her support, I finally finished the manuscript. Surprisingly, the book was published and has attracted a lot of response. After reading the book, many community members said that the story evoked in them a sense of value and responsibility for their homes. Some social activists have taken the spirit of the Mole Mafia as their guide to action, calling on the public to unite and work together to protect the common good of the community. In the face of the outside world's response, I feel heartfelt relief. I think that being able to influence more people with my brushstrokes and make more people pay attention to the community is probably my greatest achievement as a writer. In my spare time, I turn to this book in my study. Whenever I see the signature on the title page, dedicated to the people of Chicago who love their home, I feel a sense of pride. It's a testament to what I, as an ordinary person, have done for my hometown. Outside the window, the shimmering of Lake Michigan reflects the Chicago skyline. This land carries the dreams and hopes of too many people. As a member of Chicago, I am willing to dedicate myself to her, even if it is insignificant, but I have no regrets about the choice. Time flies in the busyness. In the blink of an eye, Elizabeth and I have been in love for 2 years. These 2 years have been the happiest time of my life. With Elizabeth's company, I feel that life is full of color and hope. I began to seriously consider the possibility of spending the rest of my life with Elizabeth. Whenever I saw her gentle smile, I imagined how happy we would be to wake up at home together, raise our children together, and grow old together one day. After some serious thinking, I decided to propose to Elizabeth. In order to give her an unforgettable surprise, I planned the proposal carefully. I enlisted the help of Elizabeth's best friend and asked her to invite Elizabeth to the same restaurant where we had our first date on the pretext that it was her birthday. I decorated the restaurant with flowers and balloons and played Elizabeth's favorite jazz music. When Elizabeth walked into the dining room that evening, she was speechless with amazement at the romantic decorations. I slowly walked up to her, got down on one knee, and opened the ring box. Dear Elizabeth, for the past 2 years, your presence has brightened my life. Your kindness, wisdom, and acceptance have made me a better person. I can't imagine what life would be like without you. Will you marry me and be my wife for the rest of your life? Elizabeth was in tears, speechless with excitement, but could only keep nodding her head. I put the ring on her hand and embraced her, feeling the happiness stirring in my heart. Our wedding was on schedule. The venue was the University of Chicago church where we met. The church was filled with friends and family, and everyone was smiling from the bottom of their hearts. Elizabeth was wearing a snow-white wedding dress, like an angel. She took my father's arm and walked slowly towards me. Seeing her happy smile, my eyes couldn't help but moisten. Ido. We said our vows in a sacred church and made a promise to be together for the rest of our lives. I looked at Elizabeth fondly, and in her eyes, I saw a reflection of our future. After the wedding, we had a sweet honeymoon. We traveled to Banff National Park in Canada to experience the wonders of nature in the midst of magnificent mountains and lakes. When we returned to Chicago, we started a new life. Elizabeth moved into my apartment, and we made it into a cozy little nest. We went to the grocery store, cooked together, and watched movies on the couch. We were like two teenagers, jumping at every little surprise in our lives. After I got married, I had a new attitude towards work and life. I felt a heavier responsibility to not only love Elizabeth, but also to work hard for our future. I started to work harder, and at the same time, I enrolled in some continuing education courses in the hope of improving my abilities. With Elizabeth's encouragement, I rekindled my passion for writing. Elizabeth has always been my most faithful reader and commentator. With her help, I began to try to write more in-depth works, exploring social issues and expressing my personal feelings. Gradually, I made a name for myself in the literary world, and some of my work began to receive favorable reviews. The Chicago Tribune even published a long feature article on me, making me famous. I was so proud to see my articles and name in the newspaper. What touched me most was Elizabeth's support. Whenever I was frustrated by the exhaustion of my writing, it was her encouragement that restored my confidence. Whenever my manuscript was returned, it was her consolation that helped me not to feel frustrated. With her, I feel that there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. We spent more than a year in love like this. Just when I thought the happiness would last, life gave us another surprise. Elizabeth was pregnant. When Elizabeth handed me the pregnancy test, I was so surprised I couldn't speak. But immediately afterward, I was overwhelmed with a joy I had never felt before. I hugged and kissed Elizabeth, thanking her for this miracle. I started to take care of Elizabeth wholeheartedly, accompanying her to the hospital for checkups, making healthy diet plans for her, and reading her stories every night to put her to sleep. As Elizabeth's belly grew, I was looking forward to the arrival of a new baby. 9 months later, Elizabeth gave birth to a baby girl. When the nurse placed this little pink angel in my arms, I burst into tears. It was at this moment that I realized for the first time what unconditional love is. We named our daughter Emma to symbolize a better tomorrow. As I watched Emma smile sweetly in her swaddling clothes, I vowed to be a good father and give her a happy and carefree childhood. Since then, our lives have become more colorful. Despite having a child, my relationship with Elizabeth has grown even stronger. We share the responsibility and joy of parenting together, and we are proud to see Emma growing up and learning to crawl and talk. I think this is happiness. It is not sensational, but full of the fragrance of the firewood, rice, oil, and salt. It is not shocking, but full of little by little touching. In the company of Elizabeth and Emma, I feel more satisfied and steady than ever. The years have flown by, and Elizabeth and I have been married for 5 years. To celebrate this special day, we organized a family trip to Disneyland in Florida. Watching Elizabeth and Emma laughing in front of their dream castle made me feel so happy. This is our happy place, where there are no worries, no cares, just the sound of each other's laughter. I know that life will not always be so smooth. In the future, we may still face all kinds of tests and difficulties. But I believe that as long as we work together, there is nothing we can't overcome. Because we have the most precious treasure, love and companionship. The years have gone by like a flash, and before we knew it, another 5 years had passed. In these 5 years, our family life has been peaceful and full. Emma has started elementary school, and Elizabeth and I have made great progress in our respective careers. I'm now a senior manager in an engineering firm, with several large projects under my belt. Elizabeth, on the other hand, has grown from a reporter to an associate editor at the Chicago Tribune. Our life can be said to be a happy one for both career and family. Even though life is getting better, I often think about my old friends. Since graduating from college, we've all gone our separate ways, and I haven't heard from Meline and Kim, my ex-wife and Elizabeth's ex-husband. I wonder how they're doing now. One day, I got a call from Jack. He said Tom had been diagnosed with cancer a few days ago and was now undergoing treatment in the hospital. He suggested that some of our old friends go to the hospital to see him. I was shocked and saddened by the news. I was once a spirited friend, but now I had to face the torment of the disease. I immediately agreed to Jack's proposal. On the weekend, I took the time to visit Tom in the hospital, who was usually cheerful and optimistic, but now he was lying on the hospital bed, looking very weak. But when he saw us, he still had his usual smile on his face. A few of our friends sat around the hospital bed and recounted old stories. Unconsciously, the conversation turned to the Mole Mafia incident, and Tom grinned and said that the craziest thing he had ever done in his life was that time. Jack said there have been a lot of changes in the neighborhood over the years. Mr. Smith Sr.'s grocery store closed and a supermarket chain opened. The burger joint we used to go to was torn down and turned into a shopping center, and even St. Patrick High School, where we went to school, changed ownership to a private school. We have a lot of feelings, a beautiful memory, now can only be sealed in the mind forever. Youth, friendship, and excitement will all fade away with the passage of time. As we chatted, Tom's spirit was obviously weakened, so we didn't want to disturb him too much. When we said goodbye, I quietly slipped Tom an envelope containing a sum of money we had put together for his medical expenses. Tom's eyes were red and he said no, but we insisted that he take it. Friends should support each other, share blessings and difficulties together. On the way back, I could not calm down for a long time. My friend's misfortune made me cherish the happy life in front of me even more. I secretly warned myself to work harder, take good care of my family, and live up to my hard-earned life. When we got home, I hugged Elizabeth and Emma tightly, and to their puzzled looks, I simply said, "Mommy and Daddy will always love you." As the days went by, I heard more and more about my old friends. Jack's company went bankrupt and owed a lot of money. Stephen died in a car accident at the age of 32, and Kim, I heard that he had made a good living on Wall Street and was already a rich man with a lot of money. What shocked me most was the news about Meline. Some people said that she had offended a big political figure in a report and was framed and ended up in jail. Others said that she had already remarried and moved abroad to live a life of freedom. No one knows the truth anymore. I often think that the fate of mankind, fortune and misfortune have no door. Once, we were with each other day and night, talking and laughing, but in a trance, we have gone to the other side of the world. Some people get better and better. Some people fall down in the middle of the road. This is life. When I think back to my own experience, from the failure of my first marriage, to the ups and downs of my career, to the new life, it is not a series of twists and turns. But I am thankful for Elizabeth's presence and for the fact that God did not give up on me and gave me a chance to make a comeback. I started to get more involved in philanthropy and doing what I could for the community. Elizabeth and I set up a scholarship fund to help underprivileged students in the community to complete their education. I also volunteer at the community center to give English lessons to the children there. Whenever I see these children's innocent smiles, I always think of my own childhood. At that time, I was also like them, full of bright visions for the future. Now, I just hope to do my part to make their dreams come true. Gradually, I became well known in the community and was affectionately called Mr. Johnson. Every time I hear this name, I feel heartfelt relief. This is the greatest recognition of my work, and it is also my motivation to continue to move forward. Change happens silently. Some of my former buddies are gone. Some are on different sides of the world. Even the city of Chicago has long since lost its flavor. Only that never-ending Lake Michigan, still in the sleepless lapping embankment, day after day, year after year. Time so quietly flowing, will yesterday's laughter and tears, slowly into the clouds of history. And we must learn to look forward, smile, and accept all that life gives, with love to warm everyone around. Perhaps, when we grow old and look back on this life, we will find that the most valuable thing in life is not success and fame, but those innocent feelings that we once had, as well as the relatives and friends who accompanied us along the way. Outside the window, the sun was slowly falling into the horizon. A ray of golden sunlight poured into the study, reflecting a family photo on the wall. In the photo, Elizabeth, Emma, and I were snuggling closely together with happy smiles on our faces. I know, no matter how many bumps in the road ahead, as long as we are together, there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. Because love is our strongest force. Let's go forward hand in hand, to start a new chapter of life, to write more touching and warm stories. Chicago, the city that witnessed our youth, dreams, and love, will also witness our next steps. Dear friends, let's meet tomorrow's glorious sunrise together. Time flies, and before we know it, Emma is in middle school. Elizabeth and I were happy to see our daughter grow up day by day. At the same time, we began to think about having another child to complete our family. After careful discussion, Elizabeth and I decided to have another boy. On the one hand, we wanted Emma to have a little brother to keep her company. On the other hand, we wanted to experience the joy of parenthood again. Our plan was soon put into action. Fortunately, Elizabeth became pregnant very quickly. The moment I heard the news, I was overwhelmed with emotion and tears. I vowed to be a good father and give my children a happy home. During my pregnancy, I took great care of Elizabeth, accompanying her to the hospital for checkups, preparing nutritious meals for her, and reading her stories every night to put her to sleep. As Elizabeth's belly grew bigger and bigger, I looked forward to the arrival of the new baby. We bought a house with a garden to make room for the new baby, and I decorated the nursery myself. Bought a crib, a stroller, and everything else, and Emma was so excited that she loved to lie on Elizabeth's tummy and talk to the baby inside. Before I knew it, the due date was approaching. But then, just then, I got an unexpected phone call. It was Kim. He said Melline was out of jail and wanted to see the kids. Elizabeth and I looked at each other with some gravity in our hearts. As parents, we want our children to be loved by both families. But Melline's appearance would undoubtedly break our peaceful life. After much consideration, we decided to agree to Kim's request. We agreed that Melline could visit the children once a month, but in our company and without interfering with the children's school life, for which Kim expressed her understanding and gratitude. A month later, Melline arrived as promised. The woman she once was had changed completely. The years and the prison life had carved a deep vicissitude on her face. But seeing the children, she still had a smile of relief on her face. The children were a little nervous at first, but with the encouragement of Elizabeth and me, they gradually relaxed. They showed Melline around their new home, showed her their homework and awards, and played games with her. I felt a warmth in my heart as I watched them enjoying themselves. And so we began our new life, with Melline arriving every month as scheduled, and Elizabeth and I preparing for the new addition. Gradually, Melline became a part of the family. She began to teach the children how to draw, told them about her own experiences, and reminded them to be decent human beings. Before I knew it, Elizabeth was in labor. It was a beautiful spring day, and I was nervously pacing outside the delivery room when, at last, a baby's cry came. The nurse told me it was a healthy baby boy. I rushed into the delivery room and saw Elizabeth, weak but happy, smiling and holding our son in her arms. We named our son William, which means strong and guardian. Emma and James love this little brother so much that they always gather around the crib to make little William laugh. Elizabeth and I reorganized our work schedules to allow more time for our family. I started to work from home more, and Elizabeth applied for a flexible work schedule. Although life has become busier, We are happy and contented. We lived happily together as a family. Our children grew up healthy and active, and Elizabeth and I prospered in our careers. Our children grew up healthy and active. Elizabeth and I prospered in our careers. Meline was completely rehabilitated and became the children's favorite drawing aunt. And Kim often came over to the house and brought the children all kinds of fun gifts. I know that life is long and that we will face all kinds of trials. But as long as we are united as a family and love each other, there is nothing that we cannot overcome. Looking out the window, the sky in Chicago is as blue as ever. This city, which has witnessed my joys and sorrows, will also witness the future of our family. Let's go forward together and start a new chapter. Dear Elizabeth, dear children, you have made my life so complete and happy. Being with you in this life is the best gift God has ever given me. I love you more than anything in this world. Let's pray together. Bless our families, bless Chicago, and bless everyone who tries to live life to the fullest. May the sun always shine, and may smiles always bloom. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.